Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. So when Final Fantasy XVI released back in June of last year, it kind of had a little controversy going in, but first impressions were pretty positive. But as more people were able to sit down and play the game, opinions did begin to sour a bit. It looked like a surefire bet that ended up being another in a long line of contentious Final Fantasy games, but for entirely different reasons than usual. The thing about it is an actual finished product, feature complete, not a ton of bugs. Forget the fact that the PS5's recent firmware update broke the game. That's not their fault. That's on Sony. But it's not a half-finished mess like a lot of the recent Final Fantasy games outside of the Final Fantasy VII remakes. They've just been not great at launch. Its problems are different. It's not necessarily that obvious when you first boot it up. It's not a bad game. Far from it. I actually really like it a lot. But longtime Final Fantasy fans are not getting exactly what they're expecting. It's pretty far removed from Final Fantasy expectations. It's an action game. It's barely an RPG, and that's something you're just going to have to accept if you want to enjoy this. I'm okay with that. I like my hybrid Final Fantasy VII remakes. I like that system probably the most of any Final Fantasy battle system, and this is not that. It is an action game full stop. You got one character you play as, they smack enemies with swords, and that's mostly what you're doing in this game. You watch cutscenes, it's excellent action, and the cutscenes are really impressive and well acted. That's the game, though. Looking back at it a year later, it's a game that I like. I like it a lot. I am enjoying playing it again on the PC. We'll talk more about that in a second, obviously, but after a year, I can't acknowledge a lot of the things people don't like about it. It's one of those games where you need to know what you're getting into because with the right expectations, there is a ton to like about it. But if you think you're getting the JRPG version of Witcher 3 or even like something closer to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you're at very least going to be confused, if not disappointed. That sounds like I'm saying you should expect the game to suck. Absolutely not. It's just a really different kind of Final Fantasy game. But to be fair, it has been all over the map since Final Fantasy X. That was 20 years ago. But as much as there has been different systems in the game, it's also been different levels of quality. And I'm happy to report this game is on the high end of that. Like, it's a high quality game. Opinions are divided. I'm in the positive camp. There are some things that I struggle with in terms of my thoughts on the game, but they're not the PC port because I want to say chef's kiss on this PC port. It is excellent. Right when you boot it up, it preloads the shader cache before the game even starts, and you can change settings before you even get to the main menu. Every PC game should do this. Give us the option to adjust things before jumping to the game proper, because let me tell you, it really sucks every time you go into a game and it's just set on like whatever settings they want for the first 20 minutes. It's garbage and I hate it, and there's none of that here. It is wonderful. The graphics menu has tons to work with. I've got a good PC, but from what I have seen, it seems like it runs pretty well even on moderate machines. It's one of those games that looks really nice and well rendered, but they're not going hard on experimental graphics features. Game ran flawlessly on PC for me, which is yes! Honestly, when I played it on PlayStation 5 last year, my whole thing was, I can't wait to play this on PC. I played, obviously, for a very long period of time, but still, I couldn't wait to play it on PC. I've talked about it on X/Twitter multiple times, and it's just so impressive to see how smooth it runs, even despite how chaotic and flashy certain moments are. I'll also say this, it's improved greatly from the demo. When I played the demo, I did notice some minor slowdown when the game would transition between gameplay and cinematics. In the actual game, I have experienced none of that. None of that, despite the insane tornado of effects thrown at you at all times. Combat felt silky smooth, massively responsive, didn't experience any stuttering at all. Seriously, absolutely none. I can almost never say that about PC games. It was starting to feel like an unavoidable fact the last few months as games are just going to stutter. But this one has none. Compared to the PS5 version, you can play it on higher resolutions. And that's the most noteworthy difference, and the reason I've wanted to replay it on PC this entire time. Everything is so crisp, so readable, looks less washed out, less murky. The game doesn't have like any vivid bursts of color. It's generally still pretty muted when there aren't a ton of effects going on screen. but I think that actually works to its benefit because it makes the effects that much more impressive. If you care what the PC version is like, there you go. It's one of the better ports I've played in a long time. It runs well. I've experienced no major bugs, couple of minor visual hiccups here and there, like a little bit of flickering in the distance, maybe some blocky shadows here and there. But if I wasn't looking for it, I wouldn't have seen it. It's really minor stuff. In general, the game runs really well. It can look extremely good at times, and the controls are very responsive. I even tested out the mouse and keyboard setup to see what that felt like, and it works. So many PC ports just give up and say, yeah, you use a controller. I mean, I used a controller for the majority of my playing, but it's nice that they took the extra time giving PC players something usable. I didn't even feel the need to rebind everything. I did do it with dodge. It's set to control by default, and I'm going to give myself carpal tunnel syndrome with control as a default. I have a pretty decent wingspan, so to speak. I'm a bird after all, but it doesn't really matter. It's more the angles than the distance, but that's the PC port. Excellent job. Excellent job. It's not even full price. It's $50 for the base version. 50. You know how what games used to be? Full price. That's the full price for the base version of this game. And oof, that's nice. You can pay $70 for the version with all the DLC. I have played the DLC. If you like this game, it is 100% worth it. Some of the best bosses in the game are in the DLC. So, but now that we've gotten the PC port stuff out of the way, let's actually talk the game. The base game, in fact. It's a game I overall like. Quite a bit, actually. It is far from perfect, very linear to a fault for the first 5 or 6 hours. That first hour, it's slow too. I feel like somebody said Final Fantasy VII is so great because you open in the middle of all the action. And they were like, we should open in all the action. But also we want to say 100 things as the action is happening. And does it slow it down? Because technically they open in the middle of all the action, but you really don't play for a while. And the first bit of playing isn't even fighting, it's jumping through a canyon. My harshest criticisms for the game are actually the opening. Once it gets going, I like it way more. I will say, once the game opens up, it doesn't add a whole lot to it. It's still kind of really great fighting and cutscenes, but I mean, I'm fine with that. The quote-unquote open maps, they're pretty small for a game like this, and there's not really a lot of them. Towns are fairly small and mostly empty, save for some NPCs who unload a lot of pretty standard side quests on your shoulders. These are pretty old school things as far as JRPGs go, and actually contribute to the game feeling like a JRPG, and even though it really isn't. When I said it's barely a JRPG, I don't know if I even mean that. Like, it's an action game with, stuff that makes it kind of feel like a JRPG. This is that. You're doing basic stuff like clearing out monsters or collecting resources. Pretty rare that a side quest does anything particularly exciting. They do give the world some flavor and expand some of the lore occasionally, but I mean, that's the exception. It's side quests. They're dull in most games, except for the monster hunts in most games, and they are a highlight in this game as well. The combat system is the best part of this game. The boss fights are the best parts of the combat, so it works. I'm not going to say the combat has no drawbacks. It does have them. It feels incredibly good. It's deliberate, but still very fast-paced, and it's intense without being overwhelming, but it takes a while to get going. The game has training wheels on for a long time, and combat can start to feel a bit tedious and repetitive. There's like a ton of it. It's mostly everything you're doing. It does trend towards the Tales end of the spectrum of RPG combat. Certain enemies and bosses are just like massive chunks of HP you gotta slowly grind down. Certain fights are gonna drag on for quite a while. That's not a bad thing if you like it, but if you find constantly wailing on a boss for a long time to do damage, and if you find that annoying, you're going to probably be frustrated with this game sometimes. It's not always like that, but a few fights feel like they drag on a little longer than necessary, even if they are well designed. The story has proven to be pretty divisive with people too. There are some strong characters. Our main man, Clive, seems like your generic anime protagonist with a chip on his shoulder, but the voice acting really carries him. Sid is awesome, one of the best interpretations of that character for sure. When the story starts out, it seems like it's going to be this Game of Thrones epic with shifting alliances and complex politics. And I guess it's fine. I don't know. Game of Thrones kind of soured me on Game of Thrones. But they kind of clear the board about halfway through. Again, this is kind of both good and bad. You got a complex political map that's mostly cleared around the halfway point of the game, and it becomes Final Fantasy's version of Attack on Titan with much less of the wild swings that Attack on Titan takes. The story does manage to be a little safe and familiar past the opening hours, which, like I said, are a bit slow, but they tease this more Final Fantasy Tactics-like tone, but the game doesn't really stick with it. Instead of a complicated plot, it leans on spectacle, but it does that really well. Like, Final Fantasy XVI has some of the craziest, most over-the-top nuts boss fights I've ever seen, and they somehow keep topping themselves up to the mind-boggling finale. These giant monster throwdowns, they are an experience, and they're more interactive and fun to play than you might think at first, because you retain the same control scheme as a standard fight, but at the end of the day, it is pure spectacle. They're not designed to be super challenging, so the quote-unquote real boss of a chapter is usually fought before these things. It has the odd effect of making the biggest, baddest, most climactic bosses the easiest ones in the game, because this game can be quite challenging. Some of the fights are legitimately tense and difficult, but the icon battles aren't. That's by design. They're cinematic, they're climactic, and if you made that too difficult, it would be very annoying. But I gotta say, it is weird how well they work out. They work great. They are highlights of the game on a technical level, the artistry, the graphical fidelity on screen. And hey, the characters look great pretty much throughout the entire game. The cutscenes are all lavishly presented. Also, certain areas look absolutely amazing, like the Great Wood, or the rare moments where you actually get to go into one of the capital cities. But a lot of the game is spent in kind of dull castles and rundown little towns. They don't have a lot going on. They look fine, but like it doesn't matter how good you render them. It's not like Final Fantasy VII, where towns all kind of have a theme. These are more like medieval towns as they were, to some extent at least. There are some straight-up drab locations in the game, and they get worse the second half because the world starts to become more post-apocalyptic and everything is blanketed in a purple-gray haze. It's not a flattering look for the game, and hopefully some enterprising modder will come in and restore some color, because it makes everything muddier and harder to see. It generally makes the game look worse. It's the one choice that I just flat out don't like about the game, and that's Final Fantasy XVI. It's a game with a lot of cool stuff, but also some problems. On principle, some people are just never going to like it. But for me personally, I'm just happy to see that Square Enix is capable of putting out a Final Fantasy game with a clear vision. It's not a mess. The PC port is great. You might call it unambitious or safe with its gameplay systems, but in many ways it feels like an RPG from the PS3 era updated for the current gen. And I find that to be charmingly simple and honestly refreshingly straightforward. I'm also going to say it's refreshing to play a combat system that isn't completely derived from a Soulsborne, but it's also very derived from Platinum Games, who had some input on this game. It also happens to be kind of my favorite type of combat, and I would really like it if there was more of that in games. I kind of like that Black Myth Wukong is somewhere between the middle of them, but I also really like games with this kind of combat. It's not quite Bayonetta, obviously, but for a nice long epic with some pretty damn good combat in it, it works. I really enjoyed my revisit to this world. Flaws and all, if you both understand and embrace what this game is trying to be, I think hell of a purchase at $50. Actually, hell of a purchase at $70 with the DLC. That's what I think. What do you think? Let's meet in the comments. Let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this one. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter